Tucker Carlson has announced on his Twitter that he will be continuing his show that he had on Fox News, but he's continuing it exclusively on Twitter. Now, I went through the thread underneath the comments, and Elon Musk had replied to Tucker's video, and he had said that he had not signed a deal with Tucker, but that Tucker will have access, the same access that everyone else has, to subscriptions and everything associated around content. Now, to my knowledge, Twitter right now, you are able to upload up to 10-minute videos in 1080p if you have Twitter Blue on iOS and Android apps, and you can upload longer videos if you go to the actual website on desktop. I don't know if they have a payment system or a subscription-based. Actually, I have seen a subscription-based model. I believe it's for like reading one-time articles and then for little perks and things of that nature. But in terms of a subscription model similar to, or an advertisement model, like advertisement revenue model for creators, similar to Rumble and YouTube, I don't know if they've established that just yet, but they have something of the sort, right? So what Tucker is doing, and by the way, Tucker has posted a few videos since he's left Fox, since he was fired from Fox, where he's gotten way more views, arguably maybe more high quality views than he had gotten on Fox, because Fox, yes, you are reaching millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, but on Twitter, you're reaching a global audience. You're reaching younger people, you're reaching different key demographics. On Fox, you're reaching a certain key demographic, but on Twitter, you're reaching a lot more. So there's a lot more potential here. You can get to a lot more eyeballs. And if you can only get on to Twitter to watch Tucker, and you've been an avid follower of Tucker for the past 6.5 years that he was on, when he was on Fox, well, you're gonna have to create a Twitter account, which is good for Elon Musk, and then also jump on the platform to actually watch Tucker. Then if you subscribe there, you get more content. Tucker now has a nice revenue model that he can follow. I will say this is good on many accounts. It's good on many accounts because if Elon Musk can change Twitter into platform X, which he's trying to do, which it'll become like a all-encompassing type of app similar to what they have in China, like WeChat, where they do everything on WeChat. This will be Project X, X.com, X company, whatever. And it's funneled, it's focalized around payments, but within that, there's an opportunity for content creators. So right now, we need more competition in the space of video creators. We have Rumble, we have YouTube, we have a few other places, but really YouTube and Rumble are the main powerhouses. Rumble is a new upcomer where they're validating freedom of speech. Of course, there are still limitations. It's not absolute freedom of speech, but it's definitely more than the typical platforms. And it doesn't pay as much, but it still pays. You're still able to get revenue through advertisement on your videos. If other competitors come in and they shake up the market, that's good for the consumer. That's also not just the audience member, the people viewing the content, because you may have to go onto other platforms who are allowing certain type of content to even watch that content, even if it's not typically controversial. It's just speech that is considered hate speech by other platforms, so they don't allow it, right? Typical arbitrary rules. If there's more competition, not only can audience members, individuals, now have consumer choice, but creators also have choice. See, a lot of creators they're portraying this truth with certain facts, certain information, or maybe just displaying certain perspectives, even if it's speculation or theory, or it's just a basic hypothesis. Those folks need to have access to be able to reach an audience, and they need to have traffic coming onto their site, right? So if Twitter is able to master the user interface, traffic, payment model system, a way for subscribers to accumulate, and it's kind of a foolproof way to build a base, build an audience, they are now a competitive company in that marketplace. And that's good for all the reasons that I just said. Now, this is bad in a sense that when you look at cable news, it's so easily accessible. That's why you have an older demographic, typically older demographic, who go to it, right? 40, 50, 60-year-olds. They will go to Fox News. They will go to CNN because they just turn on cable. That's what they're typically used to because they've been doing that for decades, for their whole generation, their whole life. And they see talking heads, and that's the information that they're getting. And the information is thrown at them through the media apparatus, which we know is part of the establishment. They work with the federal government. They work with different agencies that are part of the federal government. And so there's a lot of fascistic operations that are occurring within that system. You're not really getting independent creators who are doing their own due diligence, who maybe have boots on the ground, who are consuming different resources, different sources in general, and then portraying a certain point to you or multiple points to you. That is often looked down upon because it goes against the general narrative, the general status quo of what people in power want to portray as information to the people. See, the people in power, they want to portray a very limited amount of information to the people, a very solid, stable stream of what they can control. If independent creators come out and they're portraying perspective that's all the way over here, over here, over here, it's not in that steady stream of control. That's a threat. Now, it's good to have that different perspective speckled throughout everywhere, but you can only do that if those independent creators are guaranteed, in a way, financial stability. When you threaten people's financial stability, you're going to have them walk on eggshells, or you're going to exterminate them. This is why on a lot of major platforms, a lot of people have watered down their messaging because A, they want to get paid, they need financial stability because they're a person too, they have families to feed, they have resources that they need to accumulate, they have just basic life to maintain and sustain. Or they have to jump on other platforms, and these other platforms may not pay as well. Or it's too big of a risk, and so they don't take the jump, even if it's not a big jump, to do the research and then speak about it or report on it, even if it's something as simple as like writing. I know Substack is out there. You can do a lot of writing, like a blog, like a paid blog kind of thing. That's also very cool. That's also necessary, but a lot less people are reading. And then we still have to ensure that these are free speech platforms where you can actually talk about certain concepts, ideas that are maybe controversial, maybe not, but controversial in a sense that they go against what the state wants or go against what the majority of people want, right? The value of free speech comes from having the minority of people being able to say, read, write whatever they want, even if the majority disagrees with that idea. Because if you have the majority suppressing the minority, well, then you don't have free speech. Free speech is only valuable when the minority are able to say what they want, regardless of what the majority is enabling or what they care about. So this is a positive notion. I will say that Tucker has made a decent move here. Now, I know there was a lot of other places who are giving offers to Tucker. He's decided to continue on Twitter. So I don't know if Elon Musk will be doing a deal with Twitter, with Tucker. It might be in the best interests for him to do a deal, or maybe just stay neutral and say, hey, Tucker, you have the same access as everyone else, but maybe there is a type of implicit deal, or maybe there is a written deal that, hey, you won't be kicked off of Twitter, and here are the stipulations X, Y, and Z, and so there is a contract formation, but you still are operating within the same features as everyone else on Twitter. And Tucker can make a good amount of money. He can build up a base there. He already has a big base on Twitter. The only question is, can Elon Musk take Twitter to the next level and formulate it from this text-based only platform, which is fine, but it's like, short, pithy text statements. Of course, you can share articles and short videos and things of that nature, but can you change it into you have to determine what kind of platform do you want it to be. It's very hard to make a platform be versatile for everything, for it to be like a TikTok and Instagram Shorts, and then also Instagram pictures, where it's kind of like your public resume, people can see your profile, to long form video content. It's very hard to make a platform all of those things. So I will say he will have to focus on a few things. Maybe payments is a really good way to focus on that, where you can transact with anyone in the world. There's no middleman, and that would decentralize a lot of our institutions when it comes to money. Money is how people operate. Once you secure that, then you go into video platforms, which I see as, we historically have, because we're humans, most of our thinking is done through the visual cortex. We take in information, and that's what allows our brain to operate. It's like 50% of our brain is focused on the visual cortex. That's how we formulate ideas, things of that nature, how we perceive the world. So video, audio, and then reading, right? Those are the major things. Video is great because you're not only getting audio, but you're getting pictures, and you're seeing something in real time. So video platforms are huge. They're immensely significant to free speech and advancing society. Reading base and audio base, podcasts, and then Substack, things like Substack, blog types of platforms. If he can make payments, Elon Musk can do payments, video, and then also a way to communicate effectively, which I know he's working on. He's trying to do, I saw recently they're securing direct messages so that even he himself cannot look into these direct messages. They're encrypted in such a way that people who have access to the source code of Twitter can't access your direct messages themselves, where we know for a lot of other platforms, like on Facebook and Instagram, people who have access to the code, they can see your direct messages. Now, I'm sure to an extent on Twitter, if the coders really wanted to, they could see the direct messages. They could find a workaround against the encryption, but that's still better working on the encryption, first prototype of encryption versus all the other platforms who don't have that encryption, right? You would make Twitter a very successful platform if you're able to do that. Elon Musk, he has a lot of great ideas, a lot of great concepts. He's still not a free speech absolutist. He's still not letting a lot of people on Twitter. He's let a lot of people back on Twitter, but not everyone, because he has a certain emotional idea about certain people who he believes they should not be let on. And that's not being an absolutionist. There are plenty of bad people in this world, plenty of bad organizations in this world who still have Facebook groups, they still have Twitter accounts, they still have Instagram accounts, they still have YouTube accounts. And naturally, if we're going to be selecting people arbitrarily, that's not a good precedent to have. We need to enable everyone to speak freely, even if you disagree with what they're doing. They may be doing crazy things in the world, and we 100% wholeheartedly disagree with them and their actions. But just the very fact that we can see what they're speaking about, see what their ideas are, see what they're doing, that allows us to combat it with better ideas, better actions. It's a very controversial take for most people, because they will see something like ISIS, which I disagree with, and they will say, well, they shouldn't be on the platform. And then they will akin that group to an individual who has done nothing of the sort, no action similar to that. But it's done. These people are arbitrarily selected. That's the problem. You have people who control these platforms, and they're arbitrarily selecting people who to be on the platform, who not to be on the platform. Oftentimes it becomes a game of politics where, due to interests, due to bias, due to ideology, this person is allowed on, but this person is not. And you can have one person who's on the platform who's done immensely grave damage to society in some capacity, while as the other person is just saying bad things, but they haven't done the actions that are bad, right? This is very nuanced. So if we can embrace free speech on an absolute level, that's ultimately better for society. Are there costs involved to free speech absolutism? Yes, of course. There are always costs. There are going to be costs to individuals, organizations, entities, and businesses. But the benefit of being able to go against a tyrannical government, which historically federal governments have oppressed its own people, and then the rest of society, the rest of the world, that is why we need free speech. That's why we have our Bill of Rights that are absolute. We can have laws in the books that go against our Bill of Rights, but those laws are nullified because the Bill of Rights is absolute. That's the supreme law of the land. It's in our Constitution. They're part of our amendments. They override any kind of local or state or federal law if those laws obstruct those absolute rights. So you can say it's disorderly conduct or a public disturbance if you're yelling in public, even if it's public property, and so you're going to get a ticket or potentially arrested in a certain state or city. That still goes against the First Amendment. Now, I can typically agree at a reasonable level. Yeah, we don't want people yelling in the streets and causing chaos and inciting violence and have all this ruckus around. But the reason why we have that as an absolute right is so that if there's a case where it is justified in any capacity, that is constitutional and therefore lawful for people to do all the things that I mentioned before, if it's going against the federal government. And therefore, it applies in every situation. You can't pick and choose with absolute rights. With the reasonable laws, you can pick and choose, right? That's why they're reasonable laws. But with absolute rights, you don't get to pick and choose. That's what's necessary for a free functioning society, which ultimately leads to capitalism and better ideas and innovation. When you don't have... freedom of speech is not just you saying a bunch of crap that you want to say, and maybe it's controversial or not, but it's the ability to... If you go back in time, Galileo was saying, hey, look, the Earth is not the center of the universe or the solar system. I think it's something else. He was speaking out against the church and the state, which was the same at the same time, and that was not allowed. So he didn't have freedom of speech. And imagine if it was suppressed, but imagine if that was indefinitely suppressed. We would not be in the situation now where we understand what our solar system looks like, and that has led to different innovations and different expansions of how we perceive the universe. So going back to Tucker Carlson, this is great for Tucker. It's great for Elon Musk. This is a cohesive action. This is not great for other platforms if you're not on the side of free speech, because over time, as more and more competitors branch out of this, and if they have their own servers so they can't be shut down, Parler was shut down because they were on the Amazon Web Services server. They were using that cloud server to run Parler, if people remember that a few years ago. And AWS shut them down. So long as you have your own servers and you open up your own sites. Now, I will say the App Store hosted by Apple, that is one obstacle Tim Cook is a Republican, but he also acquiesces to the woke agenda. So we still do have gatekeepers, but if there's more competition, other platforms that have been leaning more to the left, because that's what many of the institutions align themselves with, they will have to submit to, okay, if we want this market share, if we want to make revenue, if we want more of an audience on our platform, and we don't want to die and decay unless we're purely ideological, we're going to have to adapt. That means there are other platforms who are about free speech. We're going to have to adopt that ideology again, which they had at the beginning, but we're going to have to adopt that ideology sooner or later. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. And advertisers in general are also going to have to submit to that ideology if they want to have people who they can advertise to. If all of these companies, because companies advertise themselves, if all of these companies are aligning themselves with woke ideology, I'm using that as an abstract term, but if they align themselves with the woke ideology, and people stop buying their products, or people stop supporting the products, or they boycott them, like Bud Light, they're going to have to adapt. They're either going to decay and get bought out, or they're going to have to adapt. And most likely, if they're smart, most companies end up adapting. Now, most companies, I won't say most companies adapt. The smart companies who live on, they adapt. And if they don't adapt, you're going to have other companies who come in, so long as there's a minimal barrier to entry, which there's a lot of regulation now. There's a lot of oligopolies that have lobbied Congress to pass regulation, which is effectively law. But if businesses are able to pass that minimal barrier to entry, they will outcompete the existing companies that are out there. And they will be able to galvanize an audience based off of a different ideology, because they understand what the market wants and what the market desires. And ultimately, in a free market system, you have to go with what the market wants. The market wants free speech. The market wants Tucker. The market wants Elon Musk and Twitter. The market wants what it wants. And the market can be wrong, but you still have to succumb to what the market wants ultimately. And there are different niches within the market. But we're actually seeing a split in the market. But the people who are actually creating jobs and creating profitable companies, I will say a lot of the tech companies are aligned on the left, but they are decaying because they're not adapting. Over time, if you have a society who is not hardworking, who's not entrepreneurial, if you have a society that just wants welfare checks and free handouts, you get the USSR. And the USSR, after a period of time, as we know, they collapsed because they couldn't handle the economic situation. So over time, this will play out where the economics will sort itself out. The question is, will we still be America by then, or will it be another country? Will another country have taken us over? That is the real question. That all depends on these different institutions, these different corporations staying in their ideology and decaying, or adapting and changing to what the market wants, and or new companies coming in and competing and creating better consumer choice, not only for the consumers, the people who are purchasing the product, the audience members, the demographic, or the content creators themselves, which allows for more freedom, more truth to go on all these sites, all these different platforms, and that will actually force the platforms to adapt to that situation. If they want creators on their platform, if they want people to watch stuff on their platform, they will have to adjust. And if they don't, well, I've already listed out the consequences.